Well, this is a very interesting week. If we took at the rules, we see that they basically banned almost all the towers, and all that's left is basically a super buffed Dartling. And I decided that, you know what, because they limited our towers so much that they wanted me to do an all towers pop challenge. And in this video, what I need to do is get every single last pop from the boss and all the balloons from the rounds need to be popped by an NG. This Dartling. And in order to actually pull this off, I am going to need to be focused on a few things. Firstly, I am going to need to be careful of leads because I am not going to be able to afford anything that will give lead popping other than an alchemist. So what I need to do is place an alchemist down and then sell it or pop all the balloons before it gets close to it. I also started with a farm because Dartling's actually very good on logs, a super long map, so I'm able to greed it out, and this will allow me to afford better defense earlier. Originally when I first started this challenge, I challenged myself to keep the spike pile till literally the end. But as you'll see, it's very hard to do that because Diamondback, one of his staple features is that he has a balloon bleed, so every 1% of health he loses, he shoots out a whole bunch of yellows, blues, and other stuff. And it's just was way too hard to keep track of everything on the screen because every last corner's covered and to catch every last pink. After I get the marketplace, now that I don't need to collect the bananas because I'm super lazy, I go back to upgrading the NG into a 220 because I'm planning to turn it into a Ray of Doom. And basically after that, there's no other DPS increase until I could get a MIB. Because if I buy laser cannon, I won't be able to pop purples. And they actually come quite early. So it's actually not that bad. Now I need to get the alchemist because leads are coming out. And I need to micro in order to pop all of the leads. So the alchemist gets 0 shots off. Now I sell the farm because the alchemist upgrade is needed since it gives way more pierce and damage and attack speed and everything. And I needed to do that before it gets there. Another thing you'll see is that the alchemist has a DOT effect, damage over time. And when it takes damage, it will take 1 second before it deals damage. And that will actually help me to allow me to pop one of the balloons before it gets any pops. But now after a little bit, I have enough to buy the MIB straight up. And I don't want to bother with the alchemist of buying and selling and making sure that I don't sell. So I get the MIB up and get laser shock because it's way more powerful, gives like an extra 3 pierce and gives an extra damage on top of that, I think. I'm not exactly sure the exact stats, but now Diamond Balloon came, and now we just need to defend the regular rounds because the boss actually isn't too hard to deal with. Now the boss is very interesting. He spawns with 5 segments, a head and a tail. And they all share a health bar with a little bit of an exception with the tail. I'll explain later, but each skull that hits, he will lose one of his middle segments, and so basically getting more pierce in order to shoot through each segment gives you more damage on the single boss. So think of each segment that you could pierce through as a damage multiplier. So you could deal 1 damage to the first segment, another damage to the second one, another to the third. The other thing to note is that the head blocks all pierce, which is going to become a very, very big problem in later tiers. But for now, it's not too big of a deal. It's also part of the reason why I have my Dartling in the bottom right. Theoretically, you could get way more damage if you go top left, because the boss head is going to be moving away from you most of the time instead of ahead of you. But the problem with that is if I would have put that there, I wouldn't have been able to put my Alchemist for the early game to pop all the lead, so I was forced to put it in the back. But back to Diamondback, his tail has an HP shield that I think is 10.25% of the boss's HP, so it's almost never worth it to target the tail. You'll see, I do end up targeting the tail later, but you can't damage the boss if you're hitting the tail, so it's better to hit the head and the main body segments, unless it's like the last skull, in which case you sometimes end up dealing enough damage to deal with the tail as well as the head, because there's no other segments to gain that damage multiplier. So that's also another reason why Diamondback is so hard, is because you start with a 5x multiplier, and then each skull you hit, you lose a multiplier on your damage. Now, theoretically, you might not be hitting maximum damage because each segment costs 2 pierce. So in order to hit all the segments, your base tower needs to have 10 pierce. Pierce is how much projectiles it can shoot through. So the Dartling in the base upgrade has 1 pierce, so it can't hit multiple segments. But the Laser Shock, I think, has 3 pierce or a little more, so it can hit multiple segments. On top of that, they actually gave a buff this update, and Laser Shock now has it doesn't have more damage, but at the higher tiers it lasts longer, because they wanted a bit more synergy with the final harmonic, which detonates all damage over time in a single burst. So the longer it is, the higher DPS it gives. But it'll also help me in this challenge, because later I'm going to want to apply Laser Shock to multiple segments, because I can't necessarily hit them all at a single time, and it gives me a huge boost of DPS. But I bought the plasma accelerator here because the rounds progressively got harder, and while the boss is on screen and blocking some of my projectiles, I decided that it wasn't going to cut it, so I made the jump to plasma accelerator. And then I, of course, go back to farming, and then I introduce one of the last towers I need, which is going to be an overclock. This is the only position in the entire map that I know of where it won't get a single pop of damage. I've done multiple all pops challenges before, and usually the only issue would be the bads, but because I have such a powerful setup, by the end of this setup, the bads won't get anywhere close. So see here, I'm moving up and down to apply Laser Shock to all the segments in order to multiply my damage a ton. And then the plasma accelerator is a bit special because it has a point where you hover it, it deals bonus damage, and the laser itself does more damage than Laser Shock would do. Laser Cannon would do. And see all these rushes of purple, I could pop them easily because I have the MIB, which lets me pop these, which normally I wouldn't be able to. Another thing I forgot to mention is how Diamondback's skulls work. Each time he hits a skull, he loses one segment, but he also shoots out all of these balloons all over the place, fortified balloons, and these special diamond balloons. These diamond balloons, their property is that they take 1 damage from all sources. So my plasma accelerator, if it does like 5 damage on the tip of the beam, the balloon would only be taking 1 damage instead. And then it's the plasma accelerator is actually pretty decent at it because it has a high attack speed rate, and the laser shock counts as a separate damage from the main thing, which ends up giving us enough DPS. And then I was tired of trying to defend the AI rounds with the boss on screen, so I went and made the jump to Ray of Doom, and the Ray of Doom gives you a whole bunch of damage as well as near infinite pierce, and most of its damage from the boss is very important that you know this, is a first target bonus damage. This is where a lot of people get it wrong and think that Ray of Doom's very good against Diamondback. It's actually not good against Diamondback, because most of its damage against bosses comes from its first target bonus damage, and it's almost impossible to land that on the boss because either you're hitting the head, which is blocking the pierce and losing you a lot of damage because you're not hitting the other segments, or if you're hitting the tail has the shield, so you're not actually damaging the boss, you're instead damaging the shield. Now, actually, that comes up with a strategy later, you'll see, is I just destroy the shield, and then the boss will become vulnerable, stunned, take 2x damage, and it'll give me an extra segment to hit. In that way, I can deal guaranteed hit all the segments and gain the first target bonus damage, which is very important. But now that I'm on Ray of Doom, I can go back to farming because there's no real threat of anything. Not even the boss will be a threat. So from here on, it's pretty much a cakewalk. There was nothing hard about the tier 3 Diamondback boss. I just continue farming, continue getting my setup and everything. I also did this on ranked because I didn't want the perks. I could have disabled it, and free rank score, whatever. It doesn't hurt to run rank when you're doing these challenges. It also can help verify that you didn't cheat and you didn't use powers and any of those things. I had it on lock targeting because it was just defending the AI rounds, which it does perfectly. But then I just got to micro a little bit for the diamond balloons. I think this tier or next tier, you'll see the big issue with Diamondback's heads blocking Pierce, as we'll actually have a very big issue with dealing with the AI balloons because the Ray of Doom can't actually pierce through and attack all of them. That's also why I'm changing the direction of the Ray of Doom here, because I want it to be able to have the most time to damage the AI balloons and everything. Also, a fun fact is that the Ray of Doom actually is not constantly attacking. It just has a very, very, very high attack speed. So, theoretically, it can lose against diamond balloons, but not really because it already has a very high attack speed. But it's important because we're going to end up giving it a lot more attack speed buffs, like Call to Arms, which gives 50% extra attack speed. Sorry, Homeland Defense, which gives 100% more attack speed. Jungle Drums, which gives 16% or 12% extra attack speed. And Ultra Boost, which gives 67% cooldown reduction, something around there. And plus the Overclock, which is another I don't know how much percent of damage of attack cooldown. So diamond balloons will definitely never be a problem here. But see, here specifically, I am not focusing on the boss in order to help defend the AI balloons, because the head would just block all the piers. And then over here, I need to go back and forth between the boss because of the balloon bleeds, and I need to make sure none of them leak. So it's a very, very annoying dance of back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And you need to make sure that you're targeting the boss enough that you end up dealing enough damage. So here we see this was the first time I broke the tail, and it got stunned for 60 seconds and took 2 times the damage. And then as soon as the next skull hit, it regenerated. Mostly I got that because the first target bonus damage, and it's usually hitting the tail in order to hit all the other segments, so it takes way more damage than the other segments. So especially when there's less segments on the boss, you'll see it end up here. If you think I'm yapping too much, please tell me in the comments. This is like my third time making a video with post commentary and everything. Maybe if you want, I should do live commentary. If you think my videos are too long, literally any feedback I will take, because I would love to do YouTube full time when I get a PC later in order to go into more productions, or I would love to hire an editor to make higher quality videos and such. Whatever, you don't need to listen to anything I yap about. Most people probably won't even get this far into the video. Also, do you think I'm speaking too fast, too loud? Whatever, just share your thoughts. I would appreciate lots and lots of appreciation of comments, thoughts, whatever you want. And you guys want me to make more guides or anything, or any type of specific balloons content, because I can go out and start making more top 50 guides. I just won't be able to get them out on the first day. Probably second or third day would be the only time I can get it out. And usually those also take way more effort, because I need to run the boss multiple times in order to make sure that the strategy is very well thought out and programmed and everything, in order to make sure that it's followable and doable in order to easily get a top 50. Another thing is that any of my top 50 guides won't exactly be easy to pull off as just anyone. They'll usually require a lot of micro and other things, and so you'll need skills other than just watching my videos to get a top 50, which makes sense because only 50 people in the world can get a top 50, so it's not an easy thing to just pull it off. Another thing I did is I got a call to arms on top of a homeland defense, because I want to have 100% uptime on abilities. So call to arms only has about a 50% uptime, so then homeland defense can cover the other 50%. Over here you could very easily see that the head blocks piers, because whenever I aim at the head and you could see the laser going through, none of those balloons are taking any damage. So here, because I got my full setup with over Ultra Boost, Homeland, and Call to Arms, this is all very, very easy, and I just blew through it really, really quickly. The only thing that was really hard in this game was the tier 5, which we'll see in a minute. I also got Alchemist, which hurt my score, so I really wish I didn't get it because it wasn't really doing anything, because I'm going to need to sell it on tier 5 because the balloon bleeds will shoot balloons right inside of the Alchemist range. I'll also leak like 1 or 2 ceramics on the tier 5 boss, but other than that, and like 1 or 2 balloons, yellow balloons from the earlier bosses, and some blue balloons that hit the spike. Other than that, all other pops this game, this run, have went onto the Ray of Doom. So here we go, the tier 5. I want to hit the most amount of segments too, so I keep it straight so it can hit all the segments and all of the AI that comes in. Now the problem is that the balloon bleed and all of these AIs sometimes move in front of the boss, and I lose my first target bonus damage. So all these blue balloons that also shoot out also make Ray of Doom really bad against the boss, because even if a single blue balloon comes in front of the laser before hitting the boss, it takes that bonus first target damage. I think the Ray of Doom does like 50 damage for the entire Ray, and then it does 150 damage to the first target. Only the first target. Plus, Laser Shock is 5 damage a second, I think, because it's a lot higher than original Laser Shock, and it lasts for 40 seconds, actually. So, you can apply it to all the segments like I'm doing here. That's why I'm going back and forth in order to apply Laser Shock to all of them. And then you can let it sit, and you'll see, because of how many segments there are, even if I'm not hitting the boss, I'm still dealing almost 1,000 damage per second. Another thing to note is this was all done on mobile, so some people say that PC has a competitive advantage and all of that. Better processing power, better everything. In my opinion, it's definitely not needed unless you're running a race, in which definitely PC has an advantage in that situation. But you can even micro very well on a mobile device as well as a PC. So there's no reason to blame that you're a mobile player and not a PC player, that you're not getting top 3s on boss events, or can't do something unless it's a specific thing like a challenge that requires you to sell and buy rapidly. But over here, I just need to do the dance between popping the AI, going back to the boss, popping the AI, going back to the boss. I also made sure to avoid the head when it's near the boss, because I need to be able to hit the AI without the head blocking all of the damage. So that was actually the only threat in the game. You see here, this is like one of the cerams that I leaked, and that's it. But otherwise, you'll see that the only thing that that I needed to do for this boss, which was actually needed and necessary, was the last segment. I needed to hit the tail and break the shield, because the head was just going to block all the pierce, and I wasn't going to get a good first target bonus damage, and it would have made AI defending a lot worse. So, plus, with the orientations of the logs, it's really, really hard to hit the boss without breaking the shield. So, I'm going to want to break the shield for the last 2 skulls, because it'll give +1 segment, the double damage, and the boss stun. Because surprisingly, Diamondback is one of the fastest boss. I think he is the second fastest boss. I'm not sure. Another thing, I don't know why I didn't mention it till now, is that for each segment that Diamondback sheds, he actually spawns less balloons on each skull. So the diamonds actually only get easier to defend later on. But over here, I'm purposely leaving it at an angle where the first target bonus damage will be hitting the tail, because in order to actually beat this boss, I'm going to need that first target bonus damage, because otherwise the damage that the Ray of Doom does isn't really that good. And then also, I need to make sure that I spend at least enough micro to beat the AI rounds, but after I beat these UMGs, that should basically be it, and I can go back to targeting the boss. And I specifically leave these BFBs here so I could go back to targeting the boss without having the new round spawn I have to worry about. But as I aim here, I'm able to get the first target bonus damage and break the tail, which stuns him for 60 seconds, and then after 60 seconds, he keeps moving. But now I'm dealing twice as much damage because of the segments, then the double damage of the vulnerable, plus the first target bonus damage. So it is very, very, very important to actually do that. Then I just made sure to check that all the other towers got 0 pops. And the really weird things about these stats is that they don't show correctly because I quit and exited a lot of times.